Hi folks, it's Teresa from Stringfield Ridge Farm. I'm out in my greenhouse today. There's a lot of cleanup that needs to go on out here right now. Our temperatures are in the upper 30s. We haven't had a good cold winter yet. We're kind of waiting on that. If you watch our channel a lot, you know that we are waiting for the cold weather to butcher our cow. And so we normally in the wintertime, we do a lot of cleanup around our property and our gardens, and that's always cleanup time for us. A lot of pots that I took out of my herb garden where I had potted plants out there, and I brought them into the greenhouse. And my thought at the time was that some of them would survive, and a few of them did. I've got cats and dogs coming in now because I've got the door open. A few plants have survived. So you can see behind me some of the dead plants. There's a few live ones I'm going to show. My main point is I'm going to clean up the greenhouse, and I'm going to clean up my herb garden. Now, what's in my herb garden is some of the dead plants that I haven't gotten out there yet, and some of the pots that things were already dead in, and the tomato cages, things like that. I'm going to clean out of there. We have always put compost on our gardens in the early spring, and we've really never done a whole lot more than compost. We've never had our soil checked because they have raised cattle on this property, and we've had horses on this property, and a lot of that is where the gardens are now. So we knew that we had good soil already, but that was 10 years ago, y'all. And so in that 10 years that we have used those gardens, we've only put compost on there. We haven't put other things on there. And so we got to talking to Miss Lippy over at Gemini Homestead. She mentioned going ahead and amending her soil. So I got to talking to her about that and learned a lot from her. So right here I'm going to stop and say, go check out Gemini Homestead. Miss Lippy and Buddy at Gemini Homestead will teach you a lot. Having that said, let's move on. I'm going to show you some of the things that have lived in my greenhouse, and then we're going to go out and look at my herb garden, my dead herb garden, and then I'm going to show you a couple of things I'm going to do to amend our soil. Now, also, one other thing, we have always put compost on our gardens, and that's great, and that helps. And we do that in the early spring. You can do it now. You can start now in the wintertime putting some of your amendments on your soil. I did not know that until Denise told me that, Miss Lippy. So also in talking to her, she talked about the woods around our house, and she said we could go out and get some of the soil out in the woods that would have a lot of good things in it that we need. And we got to discussing that and said, oh, well, we have done that. So we were doing a few things that that were amending our soil without even realizing it so much. I knew it was good, rich compost out there, and so we have used that a lot. And she was talking about some of the different minerals that would be in that soil that we are bringing to our garden that would be great. So we were doing a little. There's a few other things we're going to take advice from her and do. Okay, so one thing I brought in was a piece of my comfrey. I have more comfrey out there that will come up, but I brought a piece in because I want to spread that and move it to different areas, because the comfrey is good for your soil. That's kind of another soil amendment. Comfrey is good for your soil, and so I'm going to spread that around in the gardens and have comfrey in different spots. And let's see, most of these are dead. This is a little bit of not that's weeds. There's a little bit of parsley that I had planted in this one that is coming up. I need to get some of this other out. Sage is doing fine in here. Well, not fine, but doing okay. Sage is doing okay in here. These are what I brought in from the herb garden, hoping that they would make it in the greenhouse. Some did, some didn't. Those didn't. This is some kale. I have a kale, plus I planted some more kale in there. Let's see. Didn't make it. That didn't make it, but I'm hoping it'll come back out. That was a hibiscus, and so I'm hoping it'll come back out. This was one that Kathy at Living Miracle gave me. It didn't make it, and I probably should have took that inside the house, but I thought maybe it would make it in the greenhouse, and it didn't. And some red vein sorrel. It looks like a lot of people's red vein spinach, but this was sorrel, not spinach. And then over here, my mint died out, but it's coming back a little. So there's a little mint already trying to come back in this pot. So anyway, all right, so that's what we've got inside the greenhouse. So here is the herb garden. It's gonna need some cleaning up. I'm gonna have to get all of that stuff out of there so that it can be tilled. And I'm gonna move the ornamental stuff, the chairs and things. I'm gonna move out of there. Then I'm gonna spread some Epsom salt and DE and gypsum on there, along with some compost. And then about a week before I'm ready to plant, we will till that under. This advice came from Gemini Homestead, and so we're going to try that this year. And like I said, be sure you go and subscribe to them so that you can learn some of this stuff from them. And this is what my dead garden looks like. And this is just my herb garden. Lee has a larger garden up at the front of the property, and he'll be working on that. I'm doing my little herb garden, and he's going to take care of the big garden. And it grew pretty good this year. If you watched any of my any of our videos that you watched, you saw my gardens. There's a little bit of comfrey that tried to come back up, but we've had cold and then warmed up again, and now cold again. So a little bit of comfrey tried to come up. Well, anyway, I have pots still out here. Poor Miss Emma. I'd hate to even show y'all Miss Emma. If you know who I'm talking about, my scarecrow lady, she completely fell over. So I will have to get her up and revive her. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is get all these ornamentals and pots and tomato cages out of these two beds. My spoons are still good. I'll either save them and reuse them, or just do some more cheap little spoons for markers. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and take some of this. I'm done with that side. Time to do the other side. Ornamental moss. I'll take that to my greenhouse too. He's still alive. I think I'll... All right, that's it for now. We are going to take our wheelbarrow out in the woods and scoop up a bunch of the decayed leaves and trees from the woods and spread on here. So that's what we got going on, y'all. Lee's up there cleaning up his big garden. I'll go show you that for a minute. And it's about 38 degrees, so it's not real bad. We are supposed to get some colder weather anytime soon now, in the next week or so. And then we'll get rid of that boy right there. Old Ribeye. We'll be able to get rid of him soon. So I just want to thank Denise and Buddy at Gemini Homestead for giving us some advice and sharing their knowledge with us. And she really broke down some things and helped me understand some things that I needed to do with my garden. She's got a lot of great information in that head of hers. So y'all be sure and go check them out. Cleaning up your garden? Woo! Compost pile. We have two compost piles. We have one close to his garden, one close to my garden. His has grass clippings and leaves and waste from the garden. The leftover and waste stuff from the garden. Mine has leaves and kitchen scraps and all kinds of different stuff. He's fixing to put stuff on his garden and spread it out. I'm fixing to go home and clean up. I'm fixing to go back to the house and clean up. So there you go. Y'all give us a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe if you're not subscribed. And watch us on Friday nights at 8 p.m. Central Time.